Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
Why don't you ask this of your left-wing nut friends? If socialism is so great, why do the ideas of socialism have to be mandatory? Good morning, everybody. Here comes Kate Smith, and God bless America, followed by a patriot with our Pledge of Allegiance. Come on now, patriots, I'm counting on you. And a good morning to you on this Tuesday, November the 10th. And Zeb at the Ranch, I'm Zeb Bell, right here in the studio. And, of course, brought to you by our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you with the best in tires and the best in service. Don't forget, too, Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. Right now, let's go to the phone line. Let's have a patriot come on with our Pledge of Allegiance. Good morning.
Sometimes I feel like the last patriot out there.
Well, you go ahead and you do a good job. Go ahead.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It does bother me a little bit, Sean, that in this day and age, and especially at this time, I certainly hope people have not lost their sense of value for this great country, and I really relish people calling in with our Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you very much for what you did. Appreciate that. K&R Rental brings us the weather right now, 256 south, 600 west of Hayburn, right there smack dab on the Burley-Paul Highway. You can't miss them, let me tell you. They've got the best of tools and equipment to finish any kind of a project, let me tell you. For both long and short-term rental, you get a hold of them today. Questions? Give them a call. Roger will help you. 678-3122. K&R Rental. Right now, here's Gina with the weather.
There seems to be a malfunction with the weather, so...
All right, if you could get that going, maybe in the next minute or so, I'll come back to you and play it right away.
I'll tell Gina.
All right, thank you. Our friends at K&R bring you the weather. We'd like to bring you the weather, but technical difficulties, sometimes they have it. When you turn the tape on, sometimes the tape says, no, I'm not going to play today. Anyway, we want to thank our good friends with K&R Rental at 256 South, 600 west of Hayburn. As I said, if you have questions, they've got the answers and all the tools and equipment for you for rent. Give them a call, 678-3122, K&R Rental. Also want to acknowledge before we take our call this morning about our dear friends at Darrow's Cleaners, and they're located at 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. It goes without saying that when you take all your rumply crumplies in there, they're going to come back to you looking brand spanking new. I mean, clothes are expensive. More so than ever before, so why not take care of them and make sure that the best handle your clothes, and that's Darrow's Cleaners. The best in dry cleaning, and if you don't have time to do your washing, they'll wash, dry, and fold all your clothes just like Mama used to at Darrow's Cleaners, 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. One more quick note, and I really am high on these folks because what they do their best, and they are good. Darrow's Cleaners, yeah, I just talked about them, and it's true, but Ramsey Heating and Electric, Open your mind up, Zeb, and absorb. Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. Oh, it's true. They get there at 7:30 in the morning till 5 Monday through Friday. And literally all your heating, cooling, and electrical needs. They can do the job for you. They have for almost 7 decades. The best. Call them, 678-0459. Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. Caller, good morning to you.
Good morning, Jeff. This election has really been thrown in the air. What I would like to see, let's play this out like a Monopoly game. The people that want Trump for their president, we turn our taxes into him, let him deal with it. The people that want Biden as their president, turn their taxes into them, see which one comes out on top.
You know,
Idaho can turn around and buy California within 2 or 3 years because they'll be broke.
Yep.
And we could expand, just like what's going on over in Oregon over there. 2 counties want to succeed from Oregon because they don't like how things are going. Let's start doing that, Zeb.
Let me tell you something, and I have had numerous calls since about last Saturday from many of my friends that have said, you know what, this is ridiculous. 71 million plus people voted for Donald Trump to restay in office. And there are 71 million people that are being ridiculed by the left and the Democrats, and they're being called haters and cheaters and everything else by Michelle Obama. And I have had many people say, okay, you want the red states against the blue states, you're going to get it. And a lot of people are really upset.
Well, I'm one of them, and like I said, how else could we play this out? You remember the old Monopoly game, when you get enough money, why you buy a house.
Yeah.
When you get enough money, you buy a hotel. And I just think that we could really stand up and show the people that want Biden to see how things should be.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't take very long to prove our point. I really don't think it would.
What is the number one word, in your opinion, that would symbolize the Democrats and a Biden-Harris administration? What word comes to mind quickly?
Cheater.
Well, I would go with the word socialism, and I am so afraid of socialism and the inflection of socialism into our society. I'm just really worried. I want to tell you how much I appreciate your call. God bless you, man. Thanks.
Thanks. You too.
All right. With that caller calling in, I'm going to do something I don't normally do because they're 2 separate entities. In a minute, I am going to read, and I've been asked by quite a few of my blog readers to read a concession speech of mine over this last election. So I'm going to read that momentarily. Caller, I'll be right there. Don't forget Denny's Restaurant at 611 North Overland in Burley, and another one at 291 Pole Line Road in Twin Falls. I mean, all the delicious meals, all the delicious menu choices, all the delicious breakfast, lunch, and dinner, all the fantastic desserts for you at America's Diner, Denny's Restaurant. Thomas and the crew, they really know how to put out a meal you can sit back and enjoy at Denny's Restaurant, 611 North Overland in Burley. Caller, good morning. Thank you for your call.
Good morning to Zeb, to you and Deanne, the top of the morning, as Zeb would say. In West Virginia, there is a senator who is a Democrat who has got more guts than all the 99 other senators in the United States government. And this is Joe Manchin. Now, he is going to go against the grain, and he's not going to vote for this Green Deal or any other nonsensical thing. This man has got guts, and he has proved it in the past.
I have said, and if you're listening faithfully, like I know you do, in programs way, way early this spring, I said the Democrats would do themselves and the party a big favor if they would listen to the kind of the philosophy and the edicts of what Joe Manchin would like to see for the Democratic Party come back into existence. He's a man of common sense. He's a man of value, and I think even the Republican side of the aisle admire and respect the man. So I'm in total agreement with what you say.
The nice thing about it is, for some foul reason, we don't get the election that we need in Georgia. At least we have a friend in the so-called enemy.
I am so afraid, Keith. You've been a friend of mine for a long, long time. And I'm being very honest and straightforward here to my listening public that I am very afraid and literally scared about the January 5th runoff for the 2 Senate seats in Georgia. I don't trust the Democrats. I don't trust all the big money. And I'm talking multi millions of dollars that are coming in from Soros and other sources to buy those 2 Senate seats. And if they get them, then of course you realize we are toast as far as having any voice in this country. The 71 million people plus that voted for Donald Trump can just hang their heads because there's nothing more they can do.
But thankful there is people like Joe Manchin. He's a hero in my book and always will be. But gosh, he's going to have some help.
Oh, there's no question.
Democrats, get off of your lazy chair.
Yeah.
And get to work and do what is right.
Well, I'm going to do something right now, Keith, and I appreciate your call. And I'm gonna read my last blog that I had come out last Friday, and I think it tells exactly my feelings about Biden and the Democratic, if you want to call it Democratic, administrative ideas they might try to put on us. So, Keith, God bless you, and thank you for your call. Always appreciate it.
I'm looking forward to it.
All right, sir. Thank you. Don't forget Dino Septic Service. Oh, they cover all of southern Idaho. They are really, really good with the latest of equipment to serve you with septic tank pumping and liquid waste removal, sewer and sink drain lines cleaned, the installation of water and sewer lines. Oh, my. Call them now in Rupert at 436-6526, in Burley 678-1638, and in Twin Falls 735-8281. The very best serving you, Dino's Septic Service. You get a hold of them today. I'm going to read this now, and you can call me after I'm concluded and agree or disagree. Okay? All right. I'm about ready to offer my concession speech regarding our presidential election. Here we go. I concede that our country has given way to evil and corruption. I concede that this nation is accepting the immorality and filth of the left. I concede that green energy is the straw that will break the economic back of our nation. I concede that way too many, or even most, of teachers and professors are poisoning the minds of our students with hate America and America is evil. Damn them. I concede that money and greed shape the policies of what government is and what it does. I concede that the human refuse that call themselves Black Lives Matter and Antifa must be dealt with harshly and severely to stop their contamination of our society. I concede that the vileness of the LGBT, drug abuse, and the death of family values and lack of respect for Christianity is pushing our society into the abyss. I concede all this to be true. However, let me say this. Just like one of our nation's first flags, the rattlesnake and the slogan, "Don't tread on me," that's the attitude I'm holding on to. I'm 73 years old and I'm busted and broken from a medical textbook of injuries. But I swear to you, I will not accept your loathsome edicts without one hell of a fight. My father, my grandfathers, and generations of my name fought for this amazing United States of America and its values. The fight will not stop at my doorstep. I love this country and appreciate what this country has allowed me to accomplish. I will not let political monkeys playing in an evil cesspool destroy my life. Fight back, spit in their eye, and be proud of the USA. You can agree or disagree. Call me, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Your home is the one place where everything should be perfect, including your air. Ramsey Heating and Electric helps you achieve the perfect air you deserve with reliable, groundbreaking, award-winning Lennox products. Call Ramsey Heating and Electric today and get a Lennox home comfort system that'll help improve your health and also help your mood. It doesn't get any more perfect than that. Call today at 678-0459 or visit ramseysonline.com. Conditions apply. See dealer for details. Caller, you're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning, Zeb. Well said, and I think we have to realize what we're up against when you have big tech, big media, just endless lies, deceit, censorship, and then bureaucrats want to run our lives. You know, for example, the governor, when he shut down the state on the 27th of March, never consulted any elected officials that represent us in the legislature. I mean, he just went with the bureaucratic health bureaucrats. And that's what he's been doing all along. As far as I know, he's still not consulting the legislature. He's just an authorcat, or whatever you want to call it. And he seems to like that authority. And, of course, the mask mandate, people showed up in huge numbers to oppose that. And it's just ridiculous when they put all these things together and try to control our lives. And this is supposedly a free country, but, well, we're if we don't step up to the plate and really take an active role, and what usually happens with elections, people after the elections and they hip ha hurrah, win, lose or draw, then everybody goes back and to their easy chair and waits for the next election.
Well, hang on, Adrian. Adrian, wait a minute.
We've got to fight.
Wait a minute. Hang on. Let me get in here. And we can't just go on forever because the clock is telling me no. But I will say this. I agree with you totally about what you said. Here's the thing, and don't go on about this. Just give me a very simplified answer. What does the word mandate mean to you?
That means control over my life.
Well, wait a minute, though. What does the word mandate mean? Is there a law backing that mandate, or is it just an authoritative command?
Well, yeah, it's a bureaucratic command. The mandate, it's not a law.
That's right.
No, there's no law.
That's right. So here's my point. Let me go on with you a little bit here. Hold on. Adrian, wait a minute.
When the legislature meets, that they're going to emasculate the governor and his powers there to be able to just keep us locked down forever and ever.
Hold on a second. Let me jump in. And the reason I brought that up and I wanted you to answer that, it is with definition an authoritative command. It is not a law. And when people write op-eds like what was in the Times News this morning from the Idaho Statesman editorial board, and they're saying, headline, Utah governor issues statewide mask mandate. Now it's your turn, Governor Little. And they were talking about how they want to impose fines for not wearing masks. How can you impose a fine on a mandate that is not law? You're 100% right in what you're saying, and I'm sick and tired of politicians trying to play like Castro or Putin or anybody else, and with mandates, that's the law automatically. It is not.
Absolutely not. And the Twin Falls ordinance on masks was $102. $102?
Yeah.
Yeah, unbelievable. Well, that thing got tabled, and thank heavens, but, the pressure's on the governor. I've contacted by phone and by email, pointing out that masks don't work, number one, and that they're a health hazard to many people. So it's just ridiculous that we don't want to accept real science that these masks really don't protect you from the virus.
Well, I know that. I've got to run and do a commercial break right now, Adrian, and I appreciate your call because I'm on your page. We're both on the same page. Thank you.
I appreciate all you do.
All right.
Keep up the fight.
All right, sir, I will. Thank you very much. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, your speech there was right on the money. I think you nailed it on how you said it. The thing that I'm concerned about is that the media been calling this election for Biden.
Yeah.
And foreign governments are recognizing him and starting to talk to him.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much of a snowball down the hill effect right now with Biden and the assumption that all is well in fairy tale land about him being certified by all the states, and he now is the incoming in less than 2 months national president, which is as much malarkey as you can hear when you hear a Democratic broadcast.
Well, what I'm concerned about is what the media is creating. They're creating an atmosphere where if and when these illicit votes, the illegal votes, are taken out, who the winner is, and if it is for President Trump, it's going to be twice as bad as if they'd have kept their mouth shut and just let the thing play out.
I can't, Doug, what you're saying, and by the way, the caller that's waiting, please stand by. We'll get to you right away. I cannot even imagine, and I thought about this a little bit last night, and Sean, a little feedback on the line here. I can't imagine the absolute chaos, let's use that word chaos, that could happen if it is found out that the election was completely bogus, slanted, and illegal, and the actual winner was Trump. We had better be prepared to be in a state of anarchy.
They boarded up the windows because they thought Trump was going to win.
That's right.
And have you seen all of the Trump supporters out there burning and looting?
None.
Not a one. Yes, they've rallied. They stand there with their Trump flags in front of the election commissions and that, demanding a fair and equal election, a fair election, an honest election.
And then I'm preached to by an overweight, absolutely pathetic talk show host, Whoopi Goldberg, that sits there and berates 71 million plus people and tells them to, and I don't like this language, but I'll use exactly what she said, suck it up, America, and concede. Well, I'll tell you what, there is no concession going to happen from me because I don't trust what happened. I want to trust but verify in the future. But I'll guarantee you one thing, the left, they didn't concede 4 years ago. They looted, they burned, they pillaged, they plundered. They absolutely had guns out on the streets and explosives. That's not concession in 2016.
No, and they're calling for a peaceful transfer of power. Show me where they have peacefully transferred the power from Obama to President Trump.
I do not understand, and help me on this, please, and then we've got to let that other person come in. I do not understand, help me, how 71 million people, just a tad, which is a skosh less than what Biden ended up with, 71 million plus people, they're being told that they are supporting liars and cheats and that their vote was absolutely ridiculous and that they're frauds. How are you going to heal a nation that's split down the middle like that after they've been called liars and cheats and frauds by former First Lady Michelle Obama, and they're told to suck it up by Whoopi Goldberg and others. What are you going to do?
Well, it's going to be hard to heal it, but what's going to have to happen is sunlight's going to have to be shined on everything. President Trump needs to declassify everything with the Russia probe, with everything that's going on, and even declassify Fast and Furious and Benghazi and all of those that have been covered up for so long that the American people need to know. And the one thing I want to see declassified is the list of names of our senators and representatives and people in the government that have used taxpayer money to pay off sexual claims.
Absolutely. Doug, I always appreciate you because you're a student of the news and you delve into it more so than what is force-fed to us by these ridiculous MSNBC and CNNs. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
And one thing I want the audience to look up Hammer and look up Scorecard. It is a program that changes votes. And I would like to ask you to look up who is investors in it.
Yeah.
I will give you two names. Nancy Pelosi's husband and, what's that other gal from California that'll...
Feinstein. I'll take care of it, Sean. Thank you. Feinstein.
Her husband. So anyway, everybody, let's do what we can for our senior centers. And let's support them. Let's eat there and leave with a full tummy and a full heart.
Doug, I always appreciate your call. God bless you, man. Thanks.
You bet.
All right, caller number 2, bear with me just a second. I've got to get this on, and I will be there. I appreciate your patience. Don't forget Barry Equipment and Rental Sales Service and Parts, 159 West Highway 30 in Burley, also 465 Addison Avenue West in Twin, and the Napa location. Don't forget, they have all the Bobcats, shapes and sizes, for any job, every job. All the trenchers, scissor lifts, all the big equipment from Doosan, the wheel loaders, and the excavators. Lift and digging, pushing and carrying? Yup, done. Got it. They've got the equipment to accomplish all that. Super lease rates and great financing programs at Barry Equipment and Rental, Burley, Twin Falls, and Nampa. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. Thank you.
Good morning, Zeb. Pardon me. That was most beautifully said. If we look at what has to be done in order to defeat the 71 million. What does that say? You know, if they have to call us names, if they have to loot, if they have to burn, if they have to riot, what does that say? If they did this back when the power changed, if the Democratic side did that back in 2016, what does that say?
Well, Linda, let me ask you this.
It says a lot.
In the last 4 years, honestly, since 2016, actually before, when Trump announced his candidacy for the presidency, and after he had the nomination, hasn't there been a complete denigration by the left in condemnation of anybody that didn't agree or follow them under their tent? We were stupid, we were vile, we were haters, we were cheaters, we were frauds. They've called us these names for over 4 years, Linda.
Yes, and they've never let President Trump alone.
That's exactly right.
Never tried to work with him, and there have always been political differences, but this is the worst thing I've ever seen. They have never, ever acted in a unified way.
And the news media in this country, this is where I draw a line in the sand, Linda. The news media in this country is beyond a tipping point of jumping in on the left side of the aisle and supporting them regardless of what the true facts are.
So now we can't even trust the news media.
Nope.
And we used to sort of trust them, way big. Some people trust whatever they hear. and that it's really bad news. Pardon.
Well, let me just say something to you real quick, Linda. Linda, let me just say this to you. We can't even trust Fox News anymore for being what they say fair and balanced. Because yesterday, Fox News cut away from White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany's speech, and she was saying that there are explosive charges alleging Democrats are welcoming fraud and welcoming illegal voting, and Neil Cavuto cut it off. He censored it. And he said, whoa, I just think we have to be very clear. And he cut off Kayleigh McEnany. That ought to tell you a lot about the censorship from the news media.
Oh, yeah, that shows you where they come from, doesn't it?
Yes. Well,
I never thought I would ever see this.
Me neither. And I appreciate your call. Linda, God bless you, and thank you, as always, for your call. Appreciate it.
Go, Zeb.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Zeb, it's Earl Boylan. I'm going to try to bring this out properly. For several years, I'd heard George Soros' name come up, and I didn't know who he was, just only from your listeners calling in. And then 2 weeks ago, you had a gentleman on your show that mentioned that George Soros had made his money by breaking the British sterling. That was back in about 1990-something. And so I went to the computer and kind of looked up a autobiography of this fellow, this George Soros. And I got reading through it just briefly, and he has done damage economically throughout the world to economics to nations outside of this one. Mm-hmm. And I got thinking about it. I'm wondering what he is up to in the process that he's at now as to what he can do to this nation. And what come to my mind is I seen a movie that was Silence of the Lambs. Anthony Hopkins was in it, and a really good actor. And the terminology that came to me was relating George Soros to
Hannibal.
To Lecter.
Yes. Don't worry about names. Just go with the story.
But it's just this destructive manner that George Soros has got going.
Yeah. Well, it goes without saying, and I have chapter and verse on George Soros. I mean, literally, I've got a whole file on this man, his evil, his fingers in the pie to hurt America, destroy our Constitution. And I'm so glad that you brought up this, because I think what I'm going to do, I can't do it tomorrow because I'm booked solid, but next week I'm going to try on either Monday or Tuesday to get a source on the air that knows all about George Soros and the evil from this man and what he's trying to do, and all of his wealth, all of his millions, literally billions with B, and his destructive attitude against this United States of America. Earl, appreciate your comments, and I'll take that to heart and make sure that we do a story on that.
Thanks, Zeb. I thought I'd just bring that up because it really sparks me as to what's going on here.
I appreciate it. The man on the mountain, Earl, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Zeb.
All right, sir. Caller number 2, appreciate your patience. Go ahead, please.
Yes, good morning, Zeb. I grew up around a number of shady people back in my early days. And Joe Biden is one of the biggest gangsters that's ever put on a pair of blue suede shoes. And to have somebody like his running mate, who's an avowed Marxist, this goes to show you
what kind of a mentality we've got as voters. These guys are going to bring this country down around our knees, and it's a good thing we have got a fighter like Donald Trump going to rip this thing wide open. This country has been savaged by the way this voter turned out.
Let me ask you something, Tony. You being from the East Coast area, what were your thoughts when you listened to the despicable governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, come out yesterday and say that he was not in favor of the COVID vaccine coming out right now because it would show favors to Donald Trump and what his administration did to hurry the vaccine? He said it ought to wait a while and come out during the Biden administration. That was one of the most despicable, stupid, and dumb and biased remarks I've ever heard.
Well, Cuomo, in my opinion, is brain dead. He's nothing like his father. The younger Cuomo is just plain ignorant. He doesn't have the facts. Whenever he opens his mouth, he doesn't have the facts.
Yeah.
He's up there making a lot of noise, collecting the big money, and he's no different than the ones that are running this, trying to run this country now. He's no better than Biden. He's up there collecting the big bucks, and you can't get rid of him because the whole state is run by the Democrats. So this whole mess is something else, and I'm glad that Donald Trump came along, and he's not going to take the crap that these Democrats are trying to hand us.
Let me ask you a question, Tony, and I have nothing but respect for you and your opinions and your sharpness at your age of knowing and understanding what's going on in political circles around our country. Honestly, give me your thoughts as to what you see, what you read, what you hear, and what you comprehend. What do you think is going to happen here over the next, let's say, 2 months?
Well, I think what's going to happen is there's going to be stonewalling as far as possible. This thing may end up going 6 months. Excuse me. This thing may not be over for another 6 months because William Barr, I don't know what side of the fence this guy is on, but it just seems like he's in a position to crack down on the Democrats and just crush this whole system we've got that's holding up the election.
Yeah.
We got so many crooked politicians out there that figure that there's no way that they can be touched no matter which way this election goes.
What does it...
I think this is what one of the big problems is.
Well, let me ask you this real quick, Tony. Short answer because I got to get to the weather. But it goes without saying that Biden has said that the minute he is sworn into office, he's going to try to implement the ideas of packing the Supreme Court, ending the filibuster, supporting the new Green Deal, getting back into the Paris Climate Accord, getting back into the World Health Organization, really studying about guns and the Second Amendment in this country, et cetera, et cetera. I am really, and taking down the wall that Trump built and basically no borders, no sanctity for our taxpayers. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are what his goal is to have one leader in the country, the same way that China, the communist country of China is being run, Soviet Union is being run. Anybody comes up with an opinion to change that, they're going to end up in a gulag somewhere. And this is where we're headed if we're not careful.
I agree. Tony, it's always good to hear from you. God bless you and Mary. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Yeah, I'm really concerned. I mean, I was listening this morning early at 4:30, and they were going through a litany of things about how, with the stroke of a pen, automatically he wants to stop this, take care of this, make sure this is torn down, make sure this is thrown away. And I think for the first time in years and years and years in this country, especially on immigration, we were starting to get a handle on things. And now the Democrats are coming out and saying that we, you and I, should reach into our pocketbooks and be forcibly paying for illegals to come here and get free health care. No borders? Come on in. We'll pay for it. This is insane. Absolutely insane. Caller, I'm going to ask you a big favor. Stay with me. I'll be with you in 60 seconds or so. I've got to get this weather on, brought to everybody by Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. Absolutely. You can trust these folks with your hearing health. Please get a hold of them today. They're right behind the Minidoka County Hospital, across from the emergency room. And I've got a call coming in. I forgot to shut my phone off. And we urge you to call 312-0957. Don't forget that number again, 312-0957. There to serve you and your hearing health. Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. Right now, here's Gina with the weather.
Slight chance of snow showers off and on through today, tomorrow, and for the rest of the week. Here's a look at your weather forecast. We are expecting a 30% chance of snow showers mainly this afternoon, mostly cloudy skies with a high of 38. That's going to continue for tonight with a low of 27. About a 20% chance of snow for Veterans Day, partly sunny skies, high of 38. Thursday it will be nice, mostly sunny with a high of 42. Then more snow possible for Friday and a high of 42. That's a look at your weather for Zeb at the Ranch.
I appreciate it, Gina. Thank you. Don't forget, please, these folks really, really understand everybody's hearing health needs, and everybody is individual, and they'll customize your hearing health, what they can do for you at Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. Call them today, 312-0957. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. Thank you.
And to throw another fly in the milk, what's going to happen to if Biden is the elector? What is going to happen to all the trade deals that President Trump has done to help the American people?
Oh, yeah.
What's going to happen to the Middle East peace deal that he has brokered that nobody, in 70 years, nobody's been able to get done?
There is one other one that is not mentioned hardly at all. And I'm going to throw it at you because it's a great concern of mine. I didn't trust Obama and Biden when at 2 o'clock in the morning they sent a jet to Iran loaded with billions and billions of our tax dollars, and Trump came in and cut off all the money and the wherewithal with that Iranian deal, and basically told the Iranians, who are nothing more than a bunch of street thugs, you're not going to control us, and you'd better not touch anything nuclear. We're taking your money away whether you like it or not. And he had them pretty quiet over the last 4 years. Biden wants to resurrect that and change it and go back to the original substance of giving them money.
Exactly. And he wants to get us back in the Paris Climate Accord.
Yes, and that's our money.
Exactly. They can't even predict this hurricane that's going on around Florida. They have no idea which direction it's going to go 2 hours from now.
All I think is that there's one word that comes to mind, and that's pray. I have been praying and praying and praying that this thing will turn around and common sense and decency will prevail. But when you have a slimy, sleazy senator like Chuck Schumer that just relishes the problems that are going on, ranting and raving yesterday in front of a crowd, we're going to change the world, we're going to change America. That's chilling to me.
Yeah, they want to change America because this is going to be about their last hurrah to take us down to a third world country so they can have a one world government. When did this all start? I watched a video the other day, and this gentleman was talking about when President Trump went over to Davos in November and poked a finger in one world government eye, said all leaders of their country should put their people and their country first, not a globalist.
Yeah, you know, right there, Doug, I think, and please, if you disagree with me, let me know. But I've always been on this program, America First. America's number one. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty. And I've always said that when I look at that red, white, and blue, there is no flag, no country that even comes close. And I have been denigrated for saying that, even here with some of the deadbeats on the left that live here.
Exactly. I mean, let's put it this way. You've got a family, and you've got about 3 or 4 kids, and so you're going to take your paycheck and give it to the neighbors so they can take care of their family, and you're going to let your kids go without?
Well, did you hear, and she's been on, what is that, America's, not America's Got Talent, but American Idol. Katy Perry has been one of the judges on that program, and she has come out and said that she is absolutely against borders, and she wants everybody to just live in harmony without any borders. She said, no barriers, no borders, we all just need to coexist. Well, who's going to pay the bill when you don't have any kind of citizenry to any kind of country?
Well, let me ask Katy Perry something. Do you have gates and a fence around your property?
That's right.
Do you have walls on your house and windows and doors that you lock at night? If you do, you believe in walls and you believe in borders. If you don't believe in borders, open your property up to anybody and everybody that wants to come stay on it. And you support them when they get there.
Yeah, tell that to the ranchers down in Arizona. Tell that to my friends. I'm not going to name personal names right now that I know that are afraid to come home late at night or afraid to go out in their garage or their outbuildings on their ranches and farms early in the morning. You tell what kind of great security it is to have these illegals streaming through their fences, letting their cattle roam into Mexico. The mess, the filth, and everything else. That's what you're going to have without borders, old buddy.
Yeah, the feces and the dead bodies that are left behind. I mean, there are people dying and coming across that desert, and they just leave them.
Yeah.
It is ridiculous. But if you love this country, and if you love how it was when you grew up here, and you would like it like that again, now is the time to stand up, make your voice be heard, and pray that God will see a true and fair election happen.
Thank you, Doug. Always appreciate your calls. Thank you very, very much.
God bless.
Appreciate it. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Concede? Concession? Roll over? 71 million people all of a sudden say, well, yeah, we've got to concede. Oh, we're sorry, we voted for Trump. Oh, we want to join the blue wave. Are you kidding me? I want to give a great big shout out to our dear friends at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you with the best in tires and, of course, the best in brake service, front end alignments, shocks and struts, batteries, all of this and more. Now, we've had just a little bit of taste as to the weather changing and what could be on and will be on the roads in the not too distant future. So make sure you've got the best of tires for your safe driving. And don't forget to service. They really take care of you when you stop in there. I keep mentioning batteries all the time, and with the colder weather, colder temperatures, make sure your battery's going to start that car in the morning, or you'd better stop in and get a brand new battery. They've got them all at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. James and Buell, Dan on Poline and Twin, Lane and Rupert, Mike and Jerome, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, the Twist family in Paul, and Trent on Overland in Burley. Your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Thank you. Caller, quickly. I've got 1 minute left.
Okay. You know, a little bit ago you mentioned Katy Perry. I don't even know this lady, never hardly heard of her, but Fox took it upon himself to bring her out and let her say her piece, so to speak. That's what makes things bad in this world is because we're letting the left control us.
Yeah.
And they're starting to control Fox, and I am very disappointed.
You know, I agree with you. I don't mind in having freedom of speech, but let's be sensible about some of these things. Katy Perry, no borders, everybody just learn to live and get along, everybody come on in. Who's going to pay the bills? Are they going to send you a tax form? Keith Cottom, you pay your bill. Zeb Bell, you pay your bill. Oh, but all these people that want to come here and live, it's on us. Come on in. We'll pay your health care, your medical bills, everything. Come on, everybody join in. The American taxpayer will foot the bill, and I say that's barnyard fecal material. It's not going to happen.
I am very fearful of the day that Joe Biden is sworn in. I just dread that day.
Well,
I'm 83 years old, and I've been voted in every presidential election since I was old enough. But this is a terrible situation.
It is.
My goodness, the way we do the mail-in voting.
I got to go, Keith. I'm over time. You can tell by looking at your watch. I appreciate your candid remarks. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. We're going to send this back over to our main studio. I'll be back in about 7 minutes. Oh, good morning, good morning. A chilly morning outside. Again, well, that's the time of the year. Zeb at the Ranch. I'm Zeb Bell with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you with the best of tires and, of course, always the best in service. Don't forget, too, our friends at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. Right now, the old voice quit. Here's a good word for Western Waste.
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're always at your disposal. Western Waste Services, we care about our community, our resources, and this free land. Western Waste Services is lending a hand, always at your disposal.
Western Waste Services, it goes without saying that if you're new to the area and you just bought a new home and you don't know what to do with your garbage, well, the problem is solved. Please call them at 734-6969, and they'll make arrangements to come by on the route service, pick up your garbage. It's gone. It's out of there. Give them a call today, 734-6969, because it's true. They are always at your disposal. Western Waste Services. Want to remind you, too, about our friends over at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation. Oh, my, they are the best at what they do. Nick Greenwell and all the physical therapists really understand about recuperation from a surgery or an accident. They've got the only one-of-its-kind hydrotherapy pool right there at their location waiting to help you. I mean, these people are good. Please give them a call. Make an appointment at 678-1191. That number again, 678-1191. Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. Want to remind you, too, about some friends that have been with us a long time, and I really appreciate their community involvement and just nice people serving you at Hanson Mortuary at 710 6th Street in Rupert. Joel Heward, family, staff, always treating and providing the families they serve with the best possible support and comfort. And remember this, and it's really true, upholding the highest ethical standards with unquestioned integrity. The number to call, 436-5636. That number again, 436-5636. Hanson Mortuary at 710 6th Street in Rupert. And Joel Heward also serving you and your family at Morrison Payne Funeral Home on East Main in Burley. Right now, we're going to go to the phone line, and it's always a treat for me to have this gentleman on my program because he knows all about energy or the lack thereof, and he's with the American Energy Alliance, Dan Kish. Dan, good morning to you. How are you?
Hey, Zeb, I'm okay. How are you?
I think we're both lying to each other because if we were really being true, we would both say, boy, this election's got me worried, I'm scared, and I'm very tentative about what's going to happen.
Yeah, actually, you're right. I mean, I'm putting on a face. I'm not just worried about what's going to happen as a result of... I'm very concerned about the process. I didn't think things like this happened on a large scale in America, but anyhow, we're just watching and hoping there are good lawyers out there. So.
You know, Dan, I guess it goes without saying that as the days have gone by since the election last week, we have seen a lot of change, transition, committees being formed, cabinet members being thrown around with their names, etc. And I guess the green energy is absolutely, the new Green Deal is absolutely on the table, and I honestly don't think Americans really understand to the bottom line how devastating that will be, how disruptive it will be on their daily lives, what they do with their kids, what they do with their family, how they get to their job, all the costs that are going to be concerned. I don't think they really understand how devastating, if they get their way, how the green energy New Deal will be.
Well, Zeb, I mean, how could they understand it when basically the entire news organizations of the United States are aiding and abetting, keeping them ignorant about what is being proposed? I mean, the way they discuss it, it just sounds like a walk in the park, and this is very, very serious business, not just for the people who produce it, but for, most importantly, for the consumers. It's always been the angle that I've taken. I come from pretty modest roots, and understand that energy is a significant portion of real Americans' budgets. They don't, they watch those thermostats, they turn off the lights, they do the things necessary in order to keep their bills as low as they can, and when the government comes along, it begins sticking its fingers in there and rewarding their friends who sell more expensive and less capable sources of energy. It has the potential for amazing disruption.
Absolutely. I want to carry that point further just a moment, but we do have a caller with a question for you, Dan. Quickly, caller, you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Yes, good morning, guys. How will this green energy affect our food prices and our food supply? Will it cause a shortage?
Oh, okay. Well, I'll have him answer that on the air, and I think everybody knows the answer to that already. But, Dan, go ahead and elaborate.
Well, it just so happens that all of these cities where they're doing the recounts get their food from places far from where they live. They eat the finest foods at the finest restaurants, and they're all beholden upon something that's produced far from them, and it has to get to market, and the means of producing that require enormous amounts of energy inputs, not just for tilling the ground and harvesting, but also for pumping water, for moving it to market, and the very fertilizers. Fertilizers are produced. The cheap component of fertilizers is natural gas, and so you add that all together, add costs at every part, it becomes more and more difficult to produce the food we need. And there are all kinds of regulatory things that they can do on top of that make it more difficult.
I don't think, and this is my opinion, Dan, because I live right smack dab in one of the biggest agricultural areas in the entire United States, but I don't think the left, I don't think the Democrats have even a mere pittance of a thought as to how devastating a green energy deal would be for the food for this nation. And I have said this before, and I'll say it again, and I'll slam my fist down on the table defending my statement, that if the United States ever relinquishes the best agricultural program in the world and we become subservient to other nations for our food, we are done.
Yeah, Zeb. I mean, that's been the history of the world. In essence, the fact that God gave us the ground that has both the potential to grow agriculture as well as produce energy is a huge part of our strength. It's part of our dynamic economy. It drives a huge amount of things, and I look back at times when they've attempted these sorts of things in the past, and it led to starvation in the Ukraine, deliberately starving people out, that sort of thing. Back when the Russian Revolution came about, and the Chinese experiments with agriculture that led to tens of millions of people starving to death.
Yep.
Which was consistent with the government's approach to a lot of different things. So, this is serious business. Very serious business.
I have done my homework, Professor Kish, and thanks to you, I have delved into the archives of electric vehicles and batteries and everything else. And I have found some very interesting things that are never talked about by the left or the Democrats or even those that are pushing the purchase of electric vehicles. But I found out, and I think it's worth mentioning and having you respond because you know all this stuff, that in cold weather climates, of which I am, and of course from the Midwest originally, it really gets cold back there, that a battery for an electric car can lose as much as, I believe, 40% of its value in cold weather, which means if you were getting 200 miles on a charge, you might be doggone lucky to go 120 miles. So that relinquishes a lot of the value of electric vehicles. Would you agree or not?
Yeah, I mean, batteries are very much affected by both extreme cold and extreme heat, and they degrade rapidly at high temperatures and lose a huge amount of power at low temperatures because of it's a chemical process, and as we all remember from any chemistry that we've had, temperature affects chemical exchanges, and so, yep, that's a huge part of it.
You know, I am really worried, Dan, that we're being duped into not only buying these vehicles, but suffering from these vehicles in the future. And again, I want to go back, and I want to mention something we said last week. The transition costs, I again don't think the left or the American public realizes that when you have Newsom in California saying that in just a matter of a few years they're going to stop the sale of gas-powered vehicles and force people to go electric, and then you have the likes of AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, thinking it should be an all-electric society right now, and she might be named as the energy czar for Biden. I mean, my goodness, the transition costs of everybody having to park their vehicles, not have any trade-in on their vehicles, this is an enormous bankruptcy situation.
Yeah, Zeb, it's This is pie in the sky, and if things turn out the way they like, we're going to be the guinea pigs in this experiment.
What are your thoughts, though, about this election, Dan? I know both of us are really concerned. I am. I don't trust this possibility of the left taking over, the new green energy deal, some of the things that they want to do to limit people with what they can do, where they can travel, etc. Boy, I see a door closing that we'd better fight for.
Absolutely, Zeb. Absolutely. This is serious business. This is not, all this talk of unity is happy talk. As a matter of fact, I just saw that the speechwriter of Joe Biden's unity speech had to leave MSNBC because he didn't disclose that.
Right.
And I also noticed that 2 weeks before that, he called Trump supporters lizard brains. I think if we grew up around some wise people, we always heard that politicians just always tell you what you want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're going to see a lot of that.
I am very concerned about the, let's use the word reuniting of this country. When you have people like Michelle Obama coming out and denigrating those of us that voted and wanted the Trump administration to stay on track and were called liars and cheats and frauds, and you have the likes of Whoopi Goldberg that has about as much talent as an ant coming out and telling us to suck it up and concede, and the left absolutely saying to 71 million people plus that we should just absolutely go under their tent and assume and accept the blue lifestyle. I can't do that.
Well, I think a lot of Americans are going to find that hard. The truth of the matter is this agenda was largely hidden. They didn't talk about they talked about it in terms of clean energy. These are all terms they poll test. People say, oh, that sounds good. I'm for clean energy, aren't you? Without going into details about what that entails. And so the rubber hits the road at some point, Seth, and we'll see if sleeping giant has been awakened or not.
Let me ask you this. You're closer to the coal country, the prominent coal country back in Virginia, etc., more so than I. This talk about green energy is going to employ so many people and give so many jobs, but in the same breath, did they ever discuss about the ruination of jobs, the millions of jobs, the destruction of families trying to find another place to live or where to live in general? Did they ever talk about that?
Well, they talk about it in terms of, they say things like, well, we can teach coal miners to be coders, computer coders, and without recognizing the fact that there aren't a lot of jobs for coders in rural America, and whether or not that person wants to. It almost sounds like re-education camps.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, and they talk about all the wonderful jobs that they'll produce. I can tell you that this has already been looked at, and typically a solar panel installer or a windmill technician makes less than half what a person in the oil and gas business does. So you're asking them to give half their income and be forced into a trade that they may not want to. And it also ignores the fact that most of the component parts of all of these things, and almost all of the solar panels are going to come from China. So I would say China's pretty happy about this because they're the beneficiaries of the potential that the United States would go down this road.
Yeah. There's one segment of our society, and I think I can say this with somewhat authority because I am one of them, and that's our senior citizens. And with seniors on fixed incomes, very, very tight budgets, and you're looking at astronomical figures if the Green New Deal goes in for not only heating their homes or their apartments or trying to furbish gas or whatever it might be, electricity for their vehicles, they are going to suffer, I think, the consequences far more than anybody else. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely, Zeb. Absolutely. People on fixed incomes, people who watch their dollars, folks who, are limited in their ability to get around to begin with. And I know, there are millions of Americans out there with those issues are not going to be served well by a system that makes transportation dramatically more expensive and more difficult and more unreliable, frankly.
I think we have time for one more quick call. Caller, real fast. I've only got 2 minutes left. Go ahead.
Well, in case he actually does win, I'm very concerned about the Senate and whether or not they're going to actually be able to. Is there any way we can halt the majority of the insanity? Do you think the Senate has the teeth? McConnell, I don't know. I really wonder. I mean, how much of this can we stop? With the entire agenda, I'll hang up.
Respond, if you would, please, Dan, quickly.
Well, it's not even clear that the Senate will hold because they have these two votes, two elections they have to rerun in Georgia because neither of the winners got 50%. So, I mean, you could theoretically you could still have a situation in which Chuck Schumer becomes the head of the Senate. And as we see, they're pretty good at stealing votes in some of these places. So who knows what they'll do in order to win the Senate back. So watch carefully, folks. We're watching some stuff that I never thought we'd see in America.
I think that if you're going to be on with me next Tuesday, and I pray that you will, that in a week's time, you and I are going to have a much more, let's say, defined outline of what might happen or will happen. But you hit the nail on the head when you're talking about that Georgia runoff. That will be the deciding point, I think, for the future of this country.
I think you're right, Zeb. That's going to be a huge issue, and meanwhile, we'll watch carefully what happens in these vote counts and recounts and what the courts do as well, because it's pretty clear something is different this go-around.
Absolutely. A dear friend of this program, and I wish him well, and that's, of course, American Energy Alliance, Dan Kish, always interesting on my program. Dan, God bless you, man. Have a great week. I mean that. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you next Tuesday.
Thanks, Seb. You too, and God bless you, and God bless America.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. Want to remind everybody about your home is the one place where everything should be perfect, including your air. Ramsey Heating and Electric helps you achieve the perfect air you deserve with reliable, groundbreaking, award-winning Lennox products. Call Ramsey Heating and Electric and see how you can get a Lennox home comfort system. Absolutely. Call them today at 678-0459 or visit RamseysOnline.com. Conditions apply and see dealer for details. Are you hungry? Well, by golly, stop over to America's America's Diner, Denny's restaurant. Oh, my goodness. They've been on our program for a long time, and of course we have the Lunch Bunch, which I can't wait to start up again, and all the other great things that they do, and super delicious menu choices. I mean, whether it's breakfast, lunch, dinner, anytime, all the time. All the desserts, everything at Denny's restaurant. And don't forget, this time of the year, this time of the season, turkey dinners and delicious pies. Oh, my goodness. It's all there. It's all there for you at America's Diner, Denny's Restaurant, 611 North Overland in Burley. Really, really good people. Quick note, too, we've got a couple of other people I want to acknowledge before we go to our next guest, and one of which... Let's Ride. The reason I pause every now and then, I got to swallow, because these cough drops, woo, are they potent. Let's Ride, 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World, with hours that are absolutely serving you Monday through Friday, 9 to 6, Saturdays 9 to 2. They've got snowmobiles all over the place and all the accessories. They know that angel dandruff is going to be falling up in the hills, and you want to get out of Dodge City and go have some fun. Well, by golly, stop over and see them today, and that's Let's Ride, 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World, and it's really, really true. This is where the fun is sold, at Let's Ride. One more quick word, and that's about some folks that really care about your life insurance, health insurance, your retirement planning. They care about you, your family, and your business, and I'm talking about Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. Oh, yes, all you need to do is just pick up the phone, call the number, 436-4424. They are dedicated and very devoted to serving you. Please remember the number, 436-4424. Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. Right now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to a gentleman that I've been looking forward to having on the air. He has his latest book, The Breakdown of Higher Education, How It Happened, the Damage It Does, and What Can Be Done. Professor John Ellis, how are you this morning?
Fine. Thanks so much for having me on.
Well, it's my pleasure. I'm going to give you about the first couple of minutes to tell us about this book, The Breakdown of Higher Education. Why did you write it, and what's the main theme that you're trying to get across to the public?
Well, the main theme is that higher education has become something it was never intended to be. In all the charters of state universities, every single one of them says the university must never be used for a political purpose. And that's because the people who wrote those charters knew that politics would destroy higher education. I mean, higher education is all about opening up people's minds, getting them to think freely, getting them to think through solutions to problems. And politics is the opposite. It closes things down. If you want to teach kids to adopt a political ideology, you don't want them to stray from it. You don't want them to think about whether it's good or bad. You just want them to adopt it. And that's all there is to it. So higher education opens up people, and political ideologies, close down their thinking and focus it on one thing and don't let them get to something else. So basically, that was why the charters of all state universities outlawed political influence and outlawed the use of the university for political purposes. And at the moment today, all those instructions in the charters of state universities have been forgotten, and we now have the radical left using the universities to promote a destructive, extreme ideology that will eventually destroy the country if it's not stopped. Well, now, how this came about, I mean, it took 50 years. I mean, back in the 60s, radical left decided that it was never going to succeed at the ballot box. And so it had to find some other way to go. And it decided that taking over the universities was the best bet it had. And they worked laboriously at it for 50 years, and they finally succeeded. I must say that I was there 50 years ago. I didn't think they had a ghost of a chance of succeeding, and I was wrong.
You know, Professor Ellis, I have written about this in my blogs that I put out weekly, and one of the sentences of my blog from last week, I said that way too many, or even most, of teachers and professors are poisoning the minds of our students with hate America and America is evil. Would you agree with that statement?
I'm afraid so. It's a bitter thing to have to face that fact. I gave my life to university teaching. I believed in the universities as a very positive thing for an advanced nation like ours. But now I'd have to agree with you. I mean, the net effect of campuses, college campuses, is negative. We'd be better off without them.
Let me ask you this, and I'm going to try to discern some of the points of what you're talking about, because I totally agree with you and the concepts of your book. But the woke society, a lot of people don't understand the terminology that's used on the left now about the woke generation. How would you decide and discern that?
Well, woke, I mean, is just a shorthand for the radical left. I mean, the radical left is hostile to the American Constitution. It's hostile to a meritocratic society. It's obsessed with race. It's hostile to American history. It thinks that this is an evil country, instead of which, I mean, any reasonable student of human history sees that human society has evolved over the years. It's gotten better and better as time has gone by. And one country has been leading the way, and that's this one. So you just have a look around the world. There are forms of government being adopted by one country after another. Technology, I mean, the invention of aviation is American. The kind of free market system that we represent was really pioneered mainly by this country. To be sure, taken over from other European countries, but that is spreading its influence everywhere. So there's no question. If you look at human history in a reasonable way and understand that it was never perfect, and it was a lot worse than it is now in past ages, and it's been improving, and we were in the forefront of the improvements. If you understand all that, the radical left's attempt to paint us as an evil country is complete nonsense. But it's having some success with young, impressionable students, and that's why we ought to stop this. I mean, parents who have for years thought of a college education as a path to a better life for their kids, they should be thinking again. I mean, this is not the same world that they formed those attitudes in. Those attitudes were formed 50 years ago, probably. They ought to be rethinking them now, because it's a different world. The campuses are a very destructive influence on American life, not a positive one anymore.
Well, Professor Ellis, I would venture to say and throw my opinion in that it's not just the college and university system by any means. It starts way back with crackers and milk in kindergarten, this anti-American feeling with the teaching staff. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely, but then the question arises, who teaches? Who trains those teachers, those high school and elementary school teachers? Well, they're trained on college campuses. And let me tell you that college campus education departments that train teachers, that's just about the most left-wing section of the university world. That is a very, very left-wing outfit now, college teaching on campuses. And that's one of the reasons why we so badly need to reform the universities, because until we reform the universities, we will have an ideologically based high school and elementary school system.
But how do we go about reforming or transforming or changing a system that has been like a bus headed over a cliff? What do we do? How do we do it?
Well, look, Think about that Minneapolis Police Department. The Minneapolis City Council tried to repurpose its police department to make it into something it wasn't. Now, they could do that because there was only one source of funding, and that was the City Council itself. It controlled the funding for the police department, so it could do what it liked in one blow. Now, and it failed, of course, because the public repudiated it very quickly. But the funding for the universities comes from millions of individual decisions. I mean, every parent who pays tuition is supporting the university world. Every student who also, works to support himself in college is supporting the university world. State universities are supported through taxes appropriated by state legislatures. Then there's individual donors. There's all kinds of different funding sources going on. So it's not one decision. I mean, there's millions of individual decisions being made all across the country by different people. Now, I can tell you those decisions to abandon the university world, they are being made. I mean, if you go back to 2011, the 20.5 million students in higher education, 8 years later, in 2019, that number's dropped to 17.5 million. So there's a drop of 3 million. Now, during that time, the population of the country increased by 5%. So that means that what you should have had is an increase from 20.5 million in 2011 to 21.5 million. If you'd get that 5% increase in the population reflected in the student population. So actually, you've got a shortfall of 4 million in 8 years. That's almost 20%. 1 in 5 students that was there in 2011 isn't there on campus 8 years later, just before the pandemic starts. So, a lot of parents have been making that conclusion, that college is now a fraud, and they should not waste their money on it. I just wish that many, many more parents would make that same decision. Then we would start to see institutions of higher education going bankrupt and folding up, and a crisis would set in, and then something would be done. Some reforms would have to be instituted.
Absolutely. I totally agree with your statement. As far as from my side, not as educated on this issue by far like you are, but I see the extreme, severe, and increasing costs of going to the Notre Dames, the Michigan States, etc. And really it's turned into where only the elitist class can afford to go there, and they're the ones that seem to be causing the problems with our government society.
That's right. Well, fortunately, I suppose you could call it fortunately, the establishment on college campuses is going on a spending spree for administration, and the spending spree is all about having more diversity administrators. So it's more and more vice presidents of diversity and inclusion and racial equity and so on. And that's putting up the cost of college all by itself. The massive number of administrators being hired to do these things. They're all basically, diversity enforcers. They're not people who are conducive to higher education. They're in fact shutting down free speech on campus. They're terrible people as a class within higher education. They're very, very bad influence. But they do jack up the cost, and that, in fact, is part of why the numbers of students are dropping. I'm sure that number of parents making the decision it's not worth it is going to increase. As I say, we're at the moment at a drop of about 19% compared to 2011. My guess is if that drop gets to, say, 30-35% nationally, we're probably going to see some sort of crisis hit the campuses. Mm-hmm. People will be fired because there won't be money for them, and that'll start to produce some some thought about changing things, I hope.
Let me ask you this question, Professor Ellis. I am a proud American. I am very, very proud and happy and thankful to the good Lord above that I was born and raised in this United States, which enabled me to go out and pursue any dream I wanted to. I can succeed if I try. That's the attitude I think is lacking in education today. Pride in this great country and instilling in these kids, you can do what you want if you try. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, you have to have confidence that your efforts will be fairly rewarded. And to have that confidence, you need to believe that this country is fair and decent. And if you don't believe those things, then that confidence starts to be lacking. And the result is we'll have a citizenry that is ineffective, inefficient, depressed, not doing its best, not putting its best foot forward, not productive. And that's especially the case, of course, on college campuses with minorities, with these diversity educators convincing them that they are downtrodden, that they are discriminated against, that the society is rigged against them. I mean, all of that attacks their self-confidence. And instead, we ought to be saying to them, you live in a country that's fair, the sky's the limit for all of you, strive for anything you want, and we'll cheer you on as you succeed. That's what we should be saying to every student of every race. And every time a campus administrator, and there are millions of them doing it, every time a campus administrator says to them, the game is rigged against you, they're damaging those kids. They're damaging them very badly.
What about the breakdown? And I've seen this on a local basis. I've seen it at my old alma mater back in Wisconsin where I went to college. I've seen this across the country. The breakdown of realizing the value of free speech. How do we re-implement this?
Well, I mean, it's a very good point you raise. I mean, if there's one place in America you don't have free speech, it's on college campuses.
That's right.
I mean, it's a terrible thing to say, but because free speech should be what the campuses are all about. I mean, remember the days when, 40, 50 years ago, when professors could be eccentrics, and they would come up with opinions that were kind of very shocking at first sight, and then the more you thought about them, the more you saw there was some point to them. And that was what academic life was like. Professors explored ideas in interesting new ways, and you had to have free speech for that. Now, if you get outside of the orthodoxy on campus, you're shouted down, and you're likely to be fired. I mean, people don't seem to understand that the First Amendment is under threat on college campuses. That's one of the reasons we've got to do something about them. They are a threat to our Constitution, they're a threat to our way of life, and they're a threat to our ability to speak and think freely.
I absolutely urge my audience to find your book, The Breakdown of Higher Education, How It Happened, the Damage It Does, and What Can Be Done, written by Professor John Ellis. John, please tell my audience, where can they find the book?
Well, of course, you can always find books on Amazon, the Amazon site. The other place that's obvious is to go to publisher. You get on their website, encounterbooks.com, sorry. And then there's the other booksellers, Barnes & Noble, Target, and so on. It should be pretty easy to find.
Professor John Ellis, I certainly hope that after I read this book, I can call and have you come back on in the future. I appreciate your being on my program this morning.
Well, I'd be delighted to come back, and again, thank you so much for having me on.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Great book, a must-read. I'm going to get a copy of that as soon as I can. The Breakdown of Higher Education, How It Happened, the Damage It Does, and What Can Be Done. Professor John Ellis. We've got to get to a weather forecast right now before I run out of time and knock my microphone over. There's a fly, one of the last living flies in the cold weather is taking up residency in my office and occasionally will land on the microphone. You'll hear this zzz. We're going to get him. The weather this hour brought to you by Phillips Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company. And they are the professionals providing accounting services to the Mini-Cassia area as they have for over 50 years. The best. The best. That's not brag. That's a fact. Tax return preparation, tax planning, business consulting, retirement planning, all of this and a lot more for you, your family, and your business. With offices in Burley and Rupert. Remember the professionals, Phillips Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company. Right now, here's Gina with the weather.
Slight chance of snow showers off and on through today, tomorrow, and for the rest of the week. Here's a look at your weather forecast. We are expecting a 30% chance of snow showers, mainly this afternoon, mostly cloudy skies with a high of 38. That's going to continue for tonight with a low of 27. About a 20% chance of snow for Veterans Day, partly sunny skies, high of 38. Thursday, it will be nice, mostly sunny with a high of 42. Then more snow possible for Friday and a high of 42. That's a look at your weather for Zebeth Rain.
Appreciate it, Gina. I don't like wearing the long handles. It's cold. I took the horse out last night and had to do a little exercise. And might have helped him, but it sure didn't do me any good. Our weather brought to you by Phillips Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company. And as I said, they can help you, your family, and your business. If you're expanding your business or maybe changing to a partnership or a corporation, or maybe you want to hire more employees, you got a lot of questions, they've got the answers at the professionals. Phillips Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company with offices in Burley and Rupert. Wow. We have got a lot of things going on this morning, and I want to also mention, as I turn my papers, about the good folks over at Patterson's Electronics, 421 East Main in Burley. Holy moly. They've got all the Sony car speakers, $49.99. Holy cow. They've got Sony TVs, 43-inch, only $49.99. They were well over $599. You better check out all these great, great deals going on right now at Patterson's Electronics. Curtis and Lorena and the staff, they serve you daily, open Monday through Saturday, 9 to 6. And believe me, when it comes to all your surveillance cameras, home theater systems, everything, they've got it, and they know all about them. Absolutely. Stop in today. Patterson's Electronics, 421 East Main in Burley, or give them a call at 678-6997. I have time for one call before we go to the news, and I'd love to have you give me a jingle at 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. You know, I was talking earlier this morning about the various things that I'm really concerned about, and I said the comment, and somebody called me during the break, and they asked me to be more definitive, and I said, why should you and I as taxpayers, and why should I as a senior citizen, worried about the future, worried about retirement, worried about enough money in the bank, etc., why should I or you absorb the cost and the destruction of our Medicare and health systems to be forcibly forced to pay for illegals to come here and get health care on our dime? And that's basically what Biden and Harris and the left have said. And I absolutely will not go along with this thinking. There was a letter in the paper last week from somebody, I know the somebody, over in the Mini-Cassia area, retired teacher and coach, and I'm glad he's retired and not formulating any more of the young minds to his way of thinking, that we should basically be an open-door policy for everybody and anybody. You can't do that when the taxpayers have to fill the bill, foot the cost, and lose what their citizenship has guaranteed them. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. As you know, your home is the one place where everything should be perfect, including your air. Ramsey Heating and Electric helps you achieve the perfect air you deserve with reliable, groundbreaking, award-winning Lennox products. Call Ramsey Heating and Electric and see how soon you can get a Lennox home comfort system for your home and your health. Call Ramsey's today at 678-0459 or visit ramseysonline.com. Conditions apply and see dealer for details. Absolutely. Let me see what else have I got cooking here. Oh, by the way, and I know quite a few Marines. Today is the 245th birthday of the United States Marine Corps. November 10th, 1775 till today. God bless our United States Marines. And I'll tell you what, I'm thinking of one Marine in particular that is now an ordained minister, and I'll tell you what, there is no such thing as a former Marine. They are Marines, and their attitude is what we need more of in prominence for this great United States of America. We need pride. They have it. We need guts. They have it. And we need determination to keep this country free and great. They have it. Our hats off to the United States Marines. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. I got a minute left. Go ahead.
Good morning, Zeb. Chuck Driscoll here. Just let the Marine Corps veterans know we have coffee and donuts over here to celebrate their birthday at the Veterans Service Office at 625 Fremont Avenue here in Rupert.
By golly, you know, that just proves to me that you listen, because you're Johnny on the spot dialing in and telling everybody about the Marines celebrate their birthday with coffee and donuts. Give us the location one more time real quick.
625 Fremont Avenue in Rupert.
And by the way, Chuck Driscoll, I understand you're going to be on my program tomorrow as we talk about Veterans Day.
Yes, sir, I am, and I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely, myself included. Thank you so much, Chuck. God bless you. Have a good day with the Marines.
You too.
All right, my friend. Thank you. We're going to take a little break right now and come back with Dr. History. And then at 10:30, we've got Dr. Bruce Hartman coming on the program. He's been here before, and we're going to be talking about Christians surviving underneath some of the promotions of the Democrats and the AOCs. We're going to be talking about that at 10:30. Right now, we'll send it over to the main studio. And the music plays, and Zeb's not ready. I was visiting with Dr. History. Morning, Zeb at the Ranch, brought to you by our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations, serving you with the best of tires and service. And, of course, don't forget, too, Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. Want to remind you, too, about, and we've said this many times, your home is the one place where everything should be perfect, including your air. Ramsey Heating and Electric helps you achieve the perfect air you deserve with reliable, groundbreaking, award-winning Lennox products. Call Ramsey Heating and Electric today and see how you can get a Lennox home comfort system that will improve your health. Absolutely. Call them today at 678-0459 or visit ramseysonline.com. Conditions apply. See dealer for details. One more good word, and old Jeff, I tell you what, he's a good old boy over at Lee's Furniture, Floors and More at 459 Overland in Burley. Don't forget, they've got some tremendous door-buster deals going on over there. I want to talk recliners. They have got the largest selection of recliners, and like Dr. History and I, we're a little gray and a little long in the tooth. We love to come home at night, throw our feet up on that recliner, tip back, and just ignore everybody. Well, you can ignore everybody with comfort. The great recliners that are available at super low prices at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. No money down, no interest for 48 months on approved credit. I'll tell you what, you stop in and see them today at 459 Overland in Burley. Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. Well, it's that time. It's Tuesday, and that means that we are graced with the wonderful, the only, and I tell you what, he does a great job, Dr. History.
Good morning, Zeb.
How are you, buddy?
Great.
Do you have anybody to thank?
I do. I want to thank Alex. He has written to me several times and has made some suggestions I appreciate. And the Schnitzelflüster.
Wait a minute. May I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Sometimes with the way that you come out with pronunciations, let's be real careful with that one.
That's what he goes by.
What is that?
The Schnitzelflüster. I believe he's the Flüster. He's over there in Germany, I believe.
I wouldn't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole.
So anyway, a week or so ago, I mentioned about Father DeSmit, who was helped with some of the wagon trains coming west.
Yeah.
And so he sent me some really good information
on the Schnitzelflüster.
Yes, and
I'm never going to forget that. Now.
He even sent me a map. Look at this, Zeb, and that's what I'm going to be showing you or talking to you about.
Is that a
today.
map of what? Oh, it's all the western states.
No, it's North Dakota, Iowa, Nebraska.
Oh, okay.
South Dakota. But I'm going to be referring to that in the story, and I'm going to talk about somebody today that I'm going to bet 98% of the people will recognize. Her name is Laura Elizabeth Ingalls Wilder.
Oh, yes, Little House on the Prairie.
Exactly. So she has quite an interesting story. She was born just after the end of the Civil War. She was born in 1867. Well, I got a drink already, Zed.
Yeah, I know. Boy, I wish that was just water. I'm worried about you.
So she was born in 1867, and, of course, known for the Little House on the Prairie series of, actually, they were children's books, and they were published between 1932 and 1943, and they were based on her childhood in a settler and a pioneer family.
Did Michael Landon, when he produced and starred in that show, did he stay pretty close to the general concepts of the book?
I don't know. I don't know. With movies and TV, there's always some leeway, which way they go. But it's based on her book. Yeah. But, of course, that was the movie starred Melissa Gilbert as Laura and Michael Landon as her father, right. Charles.
Right.
Now, Laura Elizabeth Ingalls was born to Charles Phillip and Carolyn Ingalls on February 7th, 1867. At the time of her birth, the family lived 7 miles north of the village of Pepin, Wisconsin, in the Big Woods regions of Wisconsin.
Spell that, Pepin. I'd like to.
P-E-P-I-N, and it's on the western central part of the state of Wisconsin.
I do not know where that is.
It must be very small.
Yeah.
So, anyway, her home became the setting for her first book, which was called Little House in the Big Woods. She was the second of 5 children, following an older sister whose name was Mary. 3 more children would follow. Ingalls Wilder's birth site is actually commemorated by a replica log cabin at this little house in Pepin. So there's a little kind of memorial there.
So basically it was Pepin, Wisconsin.
Yes, but there's some other places where she wrote as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So she was a descendant of the Delano family, the ancestral family of U.S. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. She was a third cousin once removed of President Ulysses S. Grant. When she was 2 years old, she moved with her family from Wisconsin in 1869. After stopping in Rothville, Missouri, they settled in the Indian country of Kansas near modern-day Independence, Kansas.
Wow.
So that's clear down kind of in the southeast corner of Kansas. Now, according to Ingalls Wilder, her father, Charles, had been told that the location would be open to white settlers. But when they arrived, this was not the case. The Ingalls family had no legal right to occupy their homestead because it was on the Osage Indian Reservation. So they got some false information somehow. But they had just begun to farm when they heard rumors that that settlers would be thrown out, so they left in the spring of 1871. Although in her novel Little House on the Prairie and Pioneer Girl memoir, Ingalls Wilder portrayed their departure as being prompted by rumors of eviction. She also noted that her parents needed to recover their Wisconsin land because whoever bought it was not making the payments. So they had to go back there. So they went
back to Wisconsin.
And they lived there for the next 3 years. Now, those experiences formed the basis for her novels Little House in the Big Woods and Little House on the Prairie.
Oh.
Now, there's another book she wrote, On the Banks of Plum Creek, and this was the third volume of her history. Well, and she says fictionalized history, so we know there was obviously some things that she took for granted. But that takes place in 1874. The Ingalls family moved from Kansas to an area near Walnut Grove, Minnesota.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's kind of in the south, kind of western part of Minnesota.
Yeah, I know where that is. Yeah.
But they actually lived in a dugout on the banks of Plum Creek. So, you've seen pictures of dugouts, and they're not a very comfortable place to live, I guess, but they're protected from the elements. But anyway, they moved there from Wisconsin when Ingalls was about 7 years old, and after briefly living with the family of her uncle Peter Ingalls, first in Wisconsin, then on some rented land near Lake City, Minnesota. In Walnut Grove, the family first lived, like I said, in a dugout sod house on a claim, and they lived there throughout the winter. They moved into a new house built on the same land. Now, things kind of went bad. They had 2 summers of the crops that were ruined, led them to move to Iowa, and on the way they stayed again with Charles's brother Peter, and this time on his farm near South Troy, Minnesota. Okay. Her brother, Charles Frederick Ingalls, who they call Freddie, was born there in 1875, but he actually died 9 months later. And, Zeb, we know that a lot of kids didn't survive childhood back in those days. Yeah. But the family helped run a hotel there. The youngest of the Ingalls children, Grace, was born in 1877. Now, the family moved from Burr Oak back to Walnut Grove, where her father, Charles, served as the town butcher and justice of the peace. He accepted a railroad job in the spring of 1879, which took him to eastern Dakota Territory. And then the family joined him that fall. Now, her father filed for what they called the Formal Homestead Act over the winter of 1879-80, and to the listeners, the Homestead Act, as you remember, there were several laws in the United States by which a person could acquire ownership of government land or the public domain. Typically, they called it a homestead. In all, more than 160 million acres, or 250,000 square miles of public land, or nearly 10% of the total area of the United States, was given away free to 1.6 million homesteaders. And most of those were on the west side of the Mississippi. So he was one of the 1.6 million that took advantage of that.
Charles was.
Yeah, her father. Yeah.
All right.
Now, we're in DeSmet, South Dakota. And again, that's kind of in South Dakota on the middle eastern side of the state.
Where it gets really cold.
Yeah, I'm sure it would, yeah. And this is where her parents and her sister Mary's home would be for the remainder of their lives. After spending the mild winter of 79-80 in a surveyor's house, they watched the town of DeSmet rise up, and again, it was named for this Father DeSmet. So, from a prairie in 1880, the following year, 1880-81, one of the most severe on record in the Dakotas, winter was later described in her novel The Long Winter. Mm-hmm. Now, once the family was settled in DeSmet, Ingalls attended school. She worked several part-time jobs and made some friends. Among them was a bachelor homesteader named Almanzo Wilder. Okay.
Oh.
See where this is going?
Oh, the fires of romance.
Yeah. This time in her life is documented in her books, The Little Town on the Prairie and These Happy Golden Years.
Uh-huh.
Now, So here we are, December 10th, 1882. She's not married yet. 2 months before her 16th birthday, so she's only 15, Ingalls accepted her first teaching position. She taught...
At 16 years of age?
50, yeah, almost 16.
Wow.
But she taught 3 terms in a one-room school when she was not attending school in DeSmet. So she was teaching and going to school.
I see.
And just to throw something in, Zeb, my dad's first teaching job was in a one-room schoolhouse south of Filer, the other side of Twin Falls, and he taught there for about a year, and he had grades 1 through, I think, 6. Really? And my sister and I were just, of course, 1, 2 years old, 3 years old, and I still remember that little one-room schoolhouse where my dad started.
I went to a one-room schoolhouse.
Did you?
Yeah, Curtis Mill Elementary.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, actually, after that experience, she later admitted she did not particularly enjoy it, but felt a responsibility from a young age to help her family financially. And wage earning opportunities for women were pretty limited. So between 1883 and 85, she taught 3 terms of school. She worked for the local dressmaker and attended high school, although she actually did not even graduate. Now, so
they didn't have teacher certificates, right?
Probably not, but I think if you qualified, it didn't matter what you had. Now, her teaching career and studies ended when now, at 18 years old, she married 28-year-old Almanzo Wilder in 1885 in DeSmet, South Dakota. Now, from the beginning of their relationship, the pair had nicknames for each other. She called him Manly, and because he had a sister named Laura, he called her Bessie because her middle name was Elizabeth. So, Manly and Bessie.
I'll bet they had other names, too.
They could have. Really nice, sweet names. I really think so.
Yeah.
Now, Almanzo had actually achieved a degree of prosperity on his homestead claim, and the newly married couple started their life together in a new house north of DeSmet. And on December 5th, 1886, Wilder gave birth to her daughter, Rose, the first one. And then she gave birth to a son who died at 12 days.
Oh, my.
For whatever reason. And he's buried there at DeSmet. And the grave marker just says, baby son of A.J. Wilder.
Really?
So their first few years of marriage were kind of difficult. Complications from a life-threatening bout of diphtheria left Almanzo partially paralyzed.
Really?
Now, keep in mind, Zeb, if you couldn't physically work, it was tough going.
Yeah. What did he do, by the way?
Well, let me move on here. Let's see what comes out here. Right. He actually eventually regained nearly full use of his legs, but he needed a cane to walk for the remainder of his life. This setback, among some others, began a series of kind of unfortunate events that included, of course, what I mentioned, the death of their newborn son, then the destruction of their barn along with its hay and grain by a mysterious fire, the total loss of their home from a fire accidentally set by their daughter Rose, and several years of drought that left them totally in debt, physically ill, and unable to earn a living from, by now they had 320 acres of prairie. And his inability to work, things were not very good. So these trials were documented in Wilder's first book, The First 4 Years. Then around 1890, they left DeSmet and spent about a year resting at the home of Almanzo's parents on their Spring Valley, Minnesota farm. And then they moved briefly to Westville, Florida, because they thought if they went down there, it might help with Almanzo's health.
Wow, that's a transition.
Yeah, that's quite a ways. But, they found, however, that the dry plains they were used to was very different from the humidity they encountered in Florida.
Yeah.
Now, the weather, and they really felt out of place among the local people there. And so that kind of encouraged them to move back to DeSmet, South Dakota, and they purchased a small home. Now, a year or so later, in 1894, the Wilders moved to Mansfield, Missouri. Now, Mansfield, let me see if I can find it here. Mansfield is right down on the southern middle part of Missouri, so quite a ways farther south. And they used their savings to make the down payment on an undeveloped property outside of town, and they named the place Rocky Ridge Farm, and they moved into the kind of an old beat-up log cabin. And at first their only income was they would load up a load of firewood and sell it in town for 50 cents. A load of firewood, cut and split.
So they were a family of not very many means.
No, they were not. So, but financial security came slowly. They planted some apple trees, but actually they didn't bear any fruit for 7 years. So again, things were pretty tough.
Yeah.
Now, Almanzo's parents visited around that time and actually paid for and gave them the deed to the house that they'd been renting.
Whatever happened to Charles, her father and mother?
I'm not sure what happened to them. It doesn't really tell me what happened.
Huh.
So they had this area. They then added to the property outside of town. Eventually, they had 200 acres. And now, around 1910, they sold the house in town, moved back to the farm, and completed the farmhouse with the proceeds. And what began as about a 40-acre wooded farm with rocks and stone, they had a windowless log cabin, became, in 20 years, a pretty nice area.
Now, how old was she then?
Let's see, this would have been 1910, so what, about 35 or so?
35 years old.
But they actually kind of had a prosperous business going. They had a poultry, they had a dairy, a fruit farm, and actually a 10-room farmhouse. That, pretty nice.
Pretty big house.
Yeah. But the Wilders had learned from cultivating wheat as their sole crop in De Smet. They diversified Rocky Ridge Farm with a poultry, a dairy farm, a large apple orchard, and Wilder became active in various clubs and was an advocate for several regional farm associations. She was recognized as an authority in poultry farming and rural living, and this led her to be asked to speak at different groups around the country. So
now this is Laura.
Yeah, this is Laura. So she actually got an invitation to submit an article to the Missouri Ruralist in 1911, and that led to her permanent position as a columnist and editor with that newspaper. And she held that for about 10 years, into the mid-1920s.
Mm-hmm.
She also took a paid position with the local Farm Loan Association, dispensing small loans to local farmers. And keep in mind, Zeb, she never did graduate from high school, as I mentioned.
Yeah.
But she had to be a pretty sharp person.
Oh, yeah.
Well, her column in the magazine, or in the paper, which was titled "As a Farm Woman Thinks," introduced her to a loyal audience of the Ozarkians who enjoyed her columns. Her topics ranged from home and family, including a trip to San Francisco to visit her daughter Rose. And the couple were never wealthy until the Little House's books began to become popular. And the farming operation and her income from writing and the Farm Loan Association provided them with, actually by now, a pretty stable living.
Really?
Now,
they were up probably about then, what, 65, 70?
Getting up that way,
yeah.
But the stock market crash of 1929 wiped the Wilders out. They still owned the 200-acre farm, but it totally wiped them out. Now, the original Little House books written for elementary school-age children kind of became a really popular 8-volume record of pioneer life late in the 19th century, and, of course, based on the Eagles family experiences on the American frontier. So it became very, very popular, and I think, probably originally she thought it was only going to be maybe for a children's book or, elementary kids. But the book by now has been translated into 40 other languages.
My.
I mean, just an amazing story. Anyway, in autumn of 1956, 89-year-old Wilder, her husband, became severely ill. Or no, he actually had already died about 10 years before, but she became really ill from maybe diabetes or heart issues. She was hospitalized, but she was able to return home, but her health just declined, and after her release from the hospital, she died at home in her sleep on February 10th, 1957,
wow.
3 days after her 90th birthday.
It brings to mind a question. You and I have talked about this on the program before. We always said that we would like to try to get descendants of the stories and the people. What about her family?
Well, she had this daughter, Rose, and Rose actually became a writer in and of herself. And there's some dispute about Rose being the oldest daughter, if Rose was like helped write some of these books, and so there's a little contention or about who really wrote all the books. So there's a little fuzziness there.
But if she died, Laura Ingalls died in 1956.
57.
57, and let's say that she had a daughter. She'd have direct descendants possibly living right now today.
Yeah, well, her daughter would have been, in 1957, she would have been, 20 years younger.
Yeah.
So it should have been.
It'd be interesting if we could find someone that is of the descendancy of that family.
Yeah. And, after they actually wanted to put together a thing to purchase the house where she lived and make it kind of a visitor center, make it a museum, and actually the daughter donated money to try to make this happen, but the popularity of the Little House books has grown over the years.
Well, let me ask you another question. We're almost out of time. I got about 30 seconds, but how did Michael Landon, as the producer, do you know the story about how they found the book and the story of Laura Ingalls and turned that into a TV series?
I don't know how that all started or who came up with the idea, but, I don't know if it was him or a producer or a director or somebody said, hey, let's look at these books and let's, and again, there's a lot of characters in there that are probably not really in the books, but it's based on the stories of Laura.
That's interesting.
Elizabeth Ingalls.
That is really interesting, because maybe we could do some follow-up and find out how that went all the way to the television screen.
I could look into that, because that's that does make me curious how that finally developed into a well-known, popular movie series.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Boy, that was interesting. Thank you, because I can remember vividly I think it was on Wednesday night, Little House on the Prairie. I never missed it.
Yeah, and the characters on there.
Yeah, they were good.
They were fun to watch, yes.
You did it again.
Thank you, Zeb.
Thank you. Drive carefully. Mush your huskies in the snow.
I hope not.
Okay. God bless you, Dr. History. Real quick, I want to remind you again, your home is the one place where everything should be perfect, including your air. Ramsey Heating and Electric, they always help you achieve the perfect air that you deserve with reliable, groundbreaking, award-winning Lennox products. Call Ramsey Heating and Electric today and see how you can get a Lennox home comfort system that'll help improve your health. Call them at 678-0459 or visit RamseysOnline.com. Conditions apply. See dealer for details. We'll be back in a couple of minutes with Dr. Bruce Hartman. Don't go away.
And now, back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb Bell.
Oh, welcome back. And kind of a dreary, kind of a chilly day outside. Good morning, everybody. The last half hour, Zeb at the Ranch, and I'm very, very fortunate to have with us a gentleman that's been on this program in the past, and I always look forward to having him on the air, a straight shooter, Dr. Bruce Hartman. And he is an author and Christian advisor, and very happy to have him here as he's the author of the book, Spend a Year with Jesus, an inspirational journey of finding Jesus and faith. Good morning, Dr. Hartman.
Good morning, Zeb. Great to be on your show again.
Well, it's my pleasure. I got to tell you right up front, and you're going to have to help me a little bit. They say the old dauber's down a little bit. Well, my dauber is down because of what's taken place over the last 6 days with the so-called election and where we may be headed. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think the press has called the race too early. That's my own opinion as an outsider looking in. I don't believe that the election has been decided at this point. I think the press may have called it. You got a number of issues with this software glitch in 6 states that mysteriously happened overnight. Some of the vote changes that occurred were pretty large. I guess in Michigan it was about 100,000. So we got to look at that. Philadelphia, you have a number of legitimate affidavits that say there were dead people that voted. There's a number of votes that were counted that came in post-election. So I think there's enough swirling around that the stuff all has to get worked out. And the tension that we have right now is that Biden already declared victory, and so did the press. So the president, the current president, is behind the eight ball in anything that he says it does. And I'm happy that he's being quiet and letting the Department of Justice and the normal systems work to get this resolved. So I'm not convinced that Mr. Biden's won the race, and I'm not convinced that Mr. Trump's won the race either. I think there's still a lot more that has to get worked out over the next week or so. That's from where I sit, based on what research I've done, and I've also followed the numbers. And some of the changes are pretty remarkable that need to be explained.
Absolutely. You know, I would disagree somewhat on...
The Lord is always with us, Seb, and he will see this through, as he always does,
Absolutely.
for the benefit of his kingdom and for the benefit of the people on earth.
Absolutely. I would disagree somewhat with the verbiage when you were talking about the media. I find that the media, what they did was so repulsive. They didn't say that he won. They anointed him as the winner of the presidency. They gushed and they drooled over the fact that it may look like Donald Trump was defeated.
It was clearly set up to put on or try to build a wall that nobody could get through.
Right.
And when I say the press, I don't mean there's a lot of great radio stations and newspapers throughout our country, particularly yours, that tend to be more balanced in their views. But when I talk about the national press,
Yep.
the 3 or 4 major TV outlets and the Washington Post, New York Times, things like that. So, but it was a little bit over the top. I would say that instead.
Absolutely. Dr. Hertman, let me ask you this question. And Sean, over at the station, we've got a little feedback here. Please help me. I would say this, and feel free to correct me if you think I'm wrong, but if we are going to listen to and look at a Biden administration with his vice president as Kamala Harris not being in favor of religion or Christianity, it's going to be really tough to be a Christian in a cesspool of socialism, and that's where I'll let you take it and tell me if I'm right or wrong.
Well, I've been doing a lot of research on that. So there's some positive things about Joe Biden. One is his 2 favorite verses are Matthew 22:36-40, which is the 2 commandments, love thy God and love thy neighbor. I know I just distilled that perhaps more than I should have. And the second thing is his second favorite verse is Genesis 1:27, where it says we're all made in the image of God. Now, the reason why that's important, the fact that he has 2 pretty popular verses says that he's more mainstream than I think we might think, and certainly more mainstream than some of the progressive wing of the Democrats. With that said, these verses also indicate a tolerance that may be difficult for some of the more conservative evangelical forms of Christianity. So what does that mean is he's going to be very pro LGBTQ religious rights. He is also going to be very supportive of abortion. And that's what the understanding those 2 verses are. Now, both of particularly the abortion one, I'm very much in disagreement that that's how you can interpret it out of these 2 verses. So, but the other thing about him that's positive is he's a big proponent of protecting religion from persecution. However, on the negative side, you're not going to see prayer back in schools. You're going to still see California allowing people to protest but not go to church. Things like that are still going to occur. So Joe Biden is going to be more faith-like than I think most of the Democratic Party.
They're
also not going to ruffle feathers on things like prayer in school and some of the other things that have been taken away. and he's going to be pro-abortion. So that's what I see. But it's not as bad as it could be. Now, if something happens to Joe Biden, it's something you have to think about because he's 78. I think that with Kamala Harris, that would be a bigger problem because she's, I think, not quite as faith inclined as Joe Biden. So I think that would be difficult for the country. Those are my thoughts. Sorry for taking so long.
No. I enjoyed listening to that, and I concur with what you said. But I would like you to elaborate a little bit more on the very distinct possibility that Joe Biden will not be the president for a full 4-year term, and whether it's age or dementia or a combination of everything causing a problem to where they might even invoke the 25th Amendment against him, and Kamala Harris would take over. This woman scares me. I make no bones about it. I don't think that she is a woman to be reckoned with. I think that she's got a lot of the far left views that absolutely would be terrible for this country and our freedoms. That's where I'm really concerned with her standing in the shadows.
Yeah, I would say she's thin. She'll put on a good speech, but she's thin below those speeches. I think she's very pliable, and particularly with the louder voices of the Democratic Party, and particularly those that are progressive. Other things that she says and does show she's a bit out of touch with the reality. For instance, this one form of medical insurance for the whole country is just unworkable, and there's so many examples throughout the world where it doesn't work. And she's never really worked in life. She's either been a politician or somebody appointed by the state. So she doesn't really understand what it's like for, say, the folks in Idaho or where I live in North Carolina. She doesn't understand that. So when she goes to take away a freedom, she's not going to understand what that means to somebody. And she's very politically motivated and will say yes to whatever she needs to get ahead.
Dr. Hartman, with that being said, let's look beyond the two figureheads of a supposed Democratic administration and look down the line to Bernie Sanders. Look down the line to the squad of Ilhan Omar and Ayanna Pressley and, of course, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and others. And with their far, far left-leaning, I think as Christians, we have every right to be very concerned.
Yeah, you do. And I want to add a couple of other names to this. And one of them is with the Democratic PAC, particularly the ones that are on K Street in Washington. They were very influential in getting Joe Biden elected president. And if you go all the way back to the South Carolina primary, when he was essentially out of the race, and they put a lot of money to put him back in the race. So that's number one. I would add that group as well, particularly led by David Axelrod. The second name, which apparently can get you banned from the radio and TV, is George Soros. Mm-hmm. No mistake about it. He is pulling a lot of the strings. And so while we're talking about Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, I think it's the Democratic PAC, George Soros, and guys like David Axelrod that we actually have to be more nervous of. They can and will influence Kamala Harris 100%. Joe Biden, maybe not as much, because he does have some power on his own. But he does tend to compromise, and he knows where the money's coming from. So I think he would work with that group of moneymakers as well.
When you look,
I don't really see Elizabeth Warren, the gang, the squad, and Bernie as big a threat as the money people behind the Democratic Party.
When I listened to yesterday a gentleman that he scares me with his philosophy and his anti-Pride in America, and that's Senator Charles Schumer, when he said we're going to win the runoff in Georgia and then we're going to change the world, and then he was asked again and then he said we're going to change America. And for someone like me that listens really close to what these politicians say, I was a little bit more than fearful about the change and the transformation away from possibly our Constitution.
Yes, Schumer's a very dangerous person, has been for years. I can't believe he always gets elected. He seems to. The combination of him and Nancy Pelosi will do a lot of damage, particularly to our personal freedoms. And what you end up with is California and New York throughout the country. I mean, you don't know if you're aware of what's going on in New York City, but it is a disaster right now. And this is what people like Schumer and Pelosi end up doing. Mm-hmm. They don't understand personal freedom, and they don't understand, particularly Schumer, is so concerned about his own power. He will say and do anything. And I consider him to be very dangerous as well.
Let me ask you, speaking of the East Coast, where they seem to have most of their power and their problems, two organizations that are just waiting in the wings to get bigger and more prosperous underneath a Democratic presidency, and I'm talking about Black Lives Matter and Antifa. There are two groups that I absolutely condemn, and they need to be shut down for the betterment of America, in my opinion. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I totally agree with you on Black Lives Matter. It's interesting when people talk about them. Here's some little-known facts. One, they're not a tax-exempt organization. So what does that mean? It means they don't do anything societal that's worthy. And that's why the IRS is not giving them tax-exempt status. 80% of their money is spent on themselves or their consultants. A remarkable achievement. The second thing, when you think about Black Lives Matter, it's easy for them to go into Rochester, New York, and storm into a restaurant and take a glass of wine and throw it into a woman's face and then shame her out of the restaurant. Very easy to do. I'd like to see them in the south side of Chicago working on school enrichment programs. I'd like to see them in the south side of Chicago helping the young men become interns in businesses so that they can see they have a life. You won't ever see Black Lives Matter in difficult situations or really helping the people that, quote unquote, they're there to help. The Black Lives Matter is more of a syntax for them than it really is action. So that's my opinion on this Antifa group. Is actually funny because it's anti-fascist is really what it stands for. But they are fascist. And the thing that I've noticed is you cannot have a conversation with them. When you disagree, their voices get louder. And as you know, and I know, Zeb, we know that when somebody raises their voice, it means their argument is weak. And that's how I feel about that as well.
Absolutely.
I can tell you, whether President Trump wins or Joe Biden wins, a very strong message still has been sent to the Democratic Party that Americans don't want this. They don't want defunding of the police. They don't want people just talking negatively about Americans. And they certainly don't want people running around, throwing stones and looting. And that's the one message I think that's positive that's come out of the last 6 months.
Let me ask you one final thought, and then I've got to run, but half the nation, half the voting populous nation, 71 million people plus, voted for Donald Trump to retain office. Now the Democrats, many of them have come out and vocalized, including former First Lady Michelle Obama, that, those people that voted for Donald Trump, why, they were creating chaos and they were threatening and they were liars, etc. How do you unify a nation of 71 million voters that feel disenfranchised like I do? How do you put them back into a unification when you keep running them down?
Yeah, that's what Michelle Obama said really is just inappropriate. If the Democratic Party doesn't address the issue you just said, you'll have sweeping changes in 2022. And I'm going to make a statement that not anybody's talked about throughout the last 8 days. Donald Trump wins this election with 400 electoral votes if he presented himself in a more gentlemanly fashion. That doesn't mean he should have changed what he was doing. But he kept fueling, and they kept baiting him, but he kept fueling this anti-Trump movement on the other side. And when Trump lost the election, it was in the middle. But there's 71 million of us that see Donald differently. You know, we kind of ignore some of his bombast. Some people couldn't. So for the Democrats, if they're smart, they'll understand that they've got to come back to the center, because they only won this race because they were able to get Donald Trump unhinged a few times.
Absolutely. I wish I had more time. I absolutely love talking to you, the author of the book Spend a Year with Jesus, an inspirational journey of finding Jesus in faith. Dr. Bruce Hartman, please tell everybody quickly where the book can be obtained.
Yeah, Amazon.com, www.amazon.com, and just type in Spend a Year with Jesus, and it'll come right up.
Please come back soon. I appreciate having you on the program. Thank you so much.
Anytime, Zach.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Bruce Hartman, and I consider him a friend of this program. Very, very interesting individual. Holy smokes, am I running late. Sean's going, look at the clock, Zeb, look at the clock. Don't forget Edith's Cafe at, of course, 144 East Highway 81 in Burley, right across from the golf course, and oh my goodness, great eating for you. Oh, plenty of parking outside for everybody to go in and have a great, great meal. From sandwiches to steaks, it's always delicious. Please remember, they do catering too. They're open Tuesday through Thursday, 11 to 8, Fridays and Saturdays, 11 to 9. You're going to enjoy. You're absolutely going to enjoy Edith's Cafe, 144 East Highway 81 in Burley, and the number 878-2248. Right now it's time for the weather. Actually, it's past time for the weather. And the weather brought to you by Scarrow's Meats. Don Scarrow and the crew at 331 North Road, Jerome. And the number to call, 324-7657. Go to their website, check out all the delicious meats. I mean, the turkeys, the hams, the tri-tips, the bacons, and all the sausages. Oh, it's delicious. Scarrow's Meats over in Jerome. And right now, here's Gina with the weather.
Slight chance of snow showers off and on through today, tomorrow, and for the rest of the week. Here's a look at your weather forecast. We are expecting a 30% chance of snow showers mainly this afternoon, mostly cloudy skies with a high of 38. That's going to continue for tonight with a low of 27. About a 20% chance of snow for Veterans Day, partly sunny skies, high of 38. Thursday, it will be nice, mostly sunny with a high of 42. Then more snow possible for Friday and a high of 42. That's a look at your weather for Zebedee.
Oh, my. I guess it's that time of the year, but I don't like angel dandruff. I don't like it at all. But anyhow, I do know about great, great meats from Scarrow's Meats at 331 North Road, Jerome. Don Scarrow and the crew always serving you. Number to call, 324-7657. And remember this, at Scarrow's Meats, they are changing the way we eat, one delicious bite at a time. Holy moly, I got wrapped up in that last interview and I didn't pay attention to the clock. And I want to tell you that tomorrow on the program, we're going to be celebrating Veterans Day with Chuck Driscoll. I think George Mass is going to be a part of our program. Good to have him back. And we're going to have Gary Goldman on tomorrow from Boston, Massachusetts. Don't miss that. Going to be excellent. Want to remind you about our major sponsor, and they are, of course, the 7 locations of your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations with the best of tires for all vehicles, all tread designs, all sizes, and of course the best in brake service, front end alignment, shocks and struts, and of course batteries. Oh yeah, they've got it all. But the main thing they provide at all 7 locations, the best in service. They really take care of you. Please stop. I almost choked to death. Please stop in today and check it out. All that your needs with tires, batteries, you name it, with James and Buell, Dan on Pole Line in Twin Falls, Lane and Rupert, Mike and Jerome, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, the Twist family in Paul, and my buddy Trent on Overland in Burley. It's true, the best. Your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. That's going to wrap it up and put it back in the box for today, and we're ending our program every day with a Bible verse. verse, and today it's Proverbs chapter 29, verse 18. Where there is ignorance of God, the people run wild. But what a wonderful thing it is for a nation to know and keep his laws. That's it for today. The way things were, the way things ought to be, and the 4 words that mean the most to me: in God we trust. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 8:06.